Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. We did a previous video on the history of the Mark 12 Mod 1 special purpose rifle. What we're going to take a look at today is the Mark 12 ModO. The ModO differs from the Mod 1 in the hardware that was used on the upper receiver itself. The Mark 12 ModO uses a PRI handguard with an arms swan sleeve, arms backup sight. And the barrels of the Mark 12 ModO and Mod 1s are the same. Also, you have a folding front sight, which is also precision reflex. This is a carbon fiber handguard. The Mod 1 was a Knights armament handguard, Knights backup sights. It's a continuous rail on that handguard. Now, the Mark 12 ModO certainly predated the Mod 1. While the prototypes were made utilizing the same components that you're seeing right here. There was pretty much two different camps you had. You had pretty much the ModO Arms PRI camp, then you had the Knights camp on the Mod 1. The Mod 1 was certainly much more prevalent throughout the services. This one saw a lot of use with the Special Forces. There's another model that we're going to be looking at as well too. It's called the Mark 12 ModH or Mod Holland, but we're going to talk about the ModO here first. As you see right here, this is pretty much identical to what you would have seen, in the Special Forces, for instance. We started off with a lower receiver that was M16A1. The SOCOM had a large stock of M16A1s they were going to destroy when this project came out, and when they came out, they said, "Well, we have all these, A1 lowers. Why don't we use these for the basis of the SPRs?" This is what they did. So basically, what they did was they took the lower receivers and they replaced the triggers with the two-stage trigger. They were mostly like the Knights two-stage trigger, or there's a couple others that they used as well. They did maintain the full auto capability. The idea was this is a precision rifle with a heavy barrel. If need be, this could be turned into a light support weapon relatively quickly. Of course, once you use it as a light support weapon, your precision capability is gone, but at that point, who really cares? Because if you were in a position where you had to go to full auto, your life depended on it. So they kept that as an option if need be. Now, you would definitely find rifles where it was disconnected, where you had some automatic only triggers in them, but for the most part, as they left crane, they actually had the full auto capability. The stocks were generally left as the A1 stocks. Now you will find A2 lower receivers as well. I have actually seen photographs of Mark 12 ModOs and Mod 1s utilizing A2 lower receivers. But you may find either stock. This one here retains the A1 pistol grip. Several of them did maintain the A1 pistol grip. Some of them went to the ergo grip. The way these things left crane versus the way they ended up in the units, you can see a lot of parts that were changed out. So there's no single way that you would have seen anything. For instance, optics. This Leupold Mark IV was pretty much the standard optic that you would see on this. However, these guys would use whatever optics they could get their hands on, or whatever their preference was. So again, to say this is the only way that they came, it just would not be accurate. But the lower receiver, again, A1. Now the upper receivers were manufactured by a couple different people. There's one outfit out of Ohio that did a majority of the assembly work of both the ModOs and Mod 1s, again, depending on which service they were going to. The barrels themselves were 18-inch Douglas barrels. Again, that goes for both ModO and Mod 1. The barrels were the same. The front sight here was one that was actually bolted in place, and had a detent, circular. It was fully adjustable. The rear sight was the Arms 40, and it was adjustable for windage only. Again, the handguard was carbon fiber. Now, this particular rail, this is not a swan sleeve. This is one that was produced by Precision Reflex. This upper receiver was provided by Dave Dunlop over at Precision Reflex. He still makes the actual, as close as possible, the ModO receivers, the retro receivers. So you're able to purchase these from Precision Reflex. Due to the fact that Arm stopped making the swan sleeve, he had to make his own. He also makes his own backup sight as well. But this one here is actually a real Arms one. Again, fiberglass handguard. You have removable 1913 rails that can be placed anywhere on here. This carbon fiber hanger does a pretty good job of insulating. I definitely would say it's better than the Knights for as far as keeping your hand cooler. For the most part, you're not going to be touching it anyways. The bipods were pretty much standard as the Harris, but you would also see like the Versapod. And again, as far as bipods, whatever people could get their hands on, most of the time from Crane, they came with the Harris or the Versa. Now the actual muzzle was very interesting too, because these are both the same as well on the ModO and ModO. This was originally designed by OpSync as the OpSync sound suppressors. You had a muzzle brake on the tip here. You had a thread protector. This sound suppressor is currently available from Allen Engineering in California. Now, Ron Allen out there, he was the one who actually manufactured the ones for OpSync. OpSync is no more. But Ron Allen was the one who designed it. In fact, you can get both the original suppressor as well as the mounting hardware directly from him. You can also find this hardware. I believe PRI sells it, and there's some other companies that do as well. So you can still get it. It's made up of this sleeve. This sleeve is actually what indexes the sound suppressor on the edge here. What that does is when this thing is taken on and off, you don't have to re-zero. A lot of weapons, when you add suppressors to them, it changes the point of impact. This one, it does not. You can go from suppressed to unsuppressed, and it will not change anything. I've actually tested that myself on many occasions. This is a 1 7-inch twist, and we're going to get into the ammunition in a little bit. But this muzzle brake works also as one of the expansion chambers inside of the suppressor. And suppressors were very, very common. In fact, you'll see them more on the weapons than not, because again, it helped hide the location of the sniper, and again, it wasn't nearly as punishing for the ears as well. Again, looking at the optics, this is a Mark IV. You have the arms throw lever mounts, and you also had a extended rail on top here for one of the RMRs. This is actually the wrong mount for the RMR. The actual RMR mount sits much closer. Doesn't stick up as much, because this is this starts off as a if I recall, it starts off as a 4 power. Yeah, 3.5 power. So if you were to have to go into a close quarter condition with it, this was pretty much necessary, because you wouldn't be able to get a very quick sight picture through this, even at that power. So that's why the RMRs were used. All of this hardware you're seeing here is still currently available. From in fact, Arms is still selling everything but the Swan sleeve. The mount that you have on the bipod is also an Arms mount. The charging handle itself is the PRI gas buster. Basically what that is it has a large lip on the top to do its best to actually seal off the back of the receiver, because a lot of the gas, when you have a suppressor, will come back and it will come out the top of the receiver and hit the shooter in the face. So this does a very good job of sealing off the top and these wings on the bottom to take care of the bottom. Now again, this rifle, both the ModOs and ModOnes were a tremendous success. These things were used. There were several medals of honors that were won with these rifles. Ammunition-wise, this was designed around a specific round. The original concept for the SPR was to have an upper receiver that you could drop on an M4 lower. They decided to go this route because they wanted to go with a good trigger as well, a good two-stage sharpshooter type trigger. And it was designed around a specific round. The round was the Mark 262 Mod 1 cartridge that was designed by Jeff Hoffman at Black Hills. From lessons learned from the Army Marksmanship Unit for accuracy, the 77 grain open tip match proved to be the most accurate, pretty much the most accurate cartridge or projectile available for 5.56. What Jeff Hoffman's job was to militarize it. It was to take this the specialized load from the Army Marksmanship Unit and to turn it into a military cartridge. So basically what that was is he went to 5.56 pressures. There's a proprietary powder that is used in it that helps it achieve its incredible results. It's a 5.56 military cartridge case with a military type primer. what Jeff Hoffman was able to do is pretty incredible. He was able to mix and make a match grade, military grade cartridge, which is very difficult to do because you tend to always lose something when you try to militarize a cartridge. It made the cartridge weatherproof, the sealants and whatnot. There was 2 iterations of the projectile itself. The first one was the Mark 262 ModO, which was a Sierra 77 grain OTM. The Mark I added a cannula to it. The cannula to it allowed it to be the mouth of the cartridge case to be crimped into the projectile to hold it in place to make it more conducive with an autoloading firearm. Because you can occasionally get the projectile pushed in or moved in somewhat when the rifle cycles. By putting the crimp on there and crimping it in place, you prevent that from happening. These rifles are well under sub MOA at 100 yards. You have a good barrel and you have this ammunition. I've shot these rifles for years, and they've always been sub MOA, and in many cases half-inch MOA. I had the opportunity with the Mark 262 Mod 1 out with Jeff Hoffman at Black Hills, and we were engaging targets at 1,000 yards with the Mark 262 ammunition and an SPR. Both the Mark 12 Mod O and Mod 1 do utilize the same 18-inch Douglas barrel. The barrel does utilize a rifle length gas system. Now, you'll occasionally will also see Mod O's and Mod 1s with a telescopic buttstock. Those did not leave Crane that way. There were issues with the reliability and during full automatic fire, which is why Crane decided to go with a full stock. There were issues with the lighter buffers that were used in the carbine length stocks, getting it to cycle properly. Now, most of the guns that you see that have the carbine length stocks generally have the selective fire capability removed, or those people are aware that it's not going to work on full auto. It will on semi, that's not an issue, but they wanted to make it so it could be utilized for both situations. If the need for full auto did arise, that they would be able to do it. But this combination of the Mark 262 and this rifle were a very, very lethal combination. These were very, very widely used in the global war on terrorism. Again, these rifles were generally built and assembled at Crane. The upper receivers were built by some contractors as well, in both variations. And it does appear, though, that the Mark 12 Mod O is mostly no more. The Mark 12 Mod 1s you will still see in service. I had talked with Dave Dunlap over at PRI, and he had actually done some recent upgrades a couple of years ago, which is the ModH, which we're going to be talking about as well. And he said that most of the Mod 1s or Mod O's, the way they were assembled at Crane, were with all kinds of Loctite and everything. If anything was to ever go wrong with them, basically you had to trash the upper receivers. You were not able to repair them. So I'm sure you'll still see some in use, but for the most part, the Mod O is obsolete. Mod 1s, these have all been replaced by the Scar Heavy and the new M110C and the M110. They're for some of the longer range capabilities, but this concept is still to this day damn solid. It's still an absolute incredible rifle. The reliability is excellent. The sound suppressor, I've had a chance to use quite a few sound suppressors, and I have to say this is probably one of the quietest, if not the quietest, 5.56 suppressor I've ever seen or heard. These are still in production by Allen Engineering. So if you were looking to build a clone of a Mark 12 Mod O or Mod 1 or Mod H, you can still purchase these sound suppressors with all the original hardware. If you want the Mark 12 Mod O, PRI can set you up with as close as possible to the original thing. And again, the main difference is the top. You're going to be getting a PRI designed sleeve and a PRI backup sight rather than the Swan. I actually looked very hard to try to find a Swan sleeve for this video to show on this thing, and I could not find them anywhere. And if you do find them, I guess they command quite a bit of money now, because now they're more of a collector's type item. Arms just hasn't gotten large enough sales to put it back into production. They still make the backup sight. They still make the scope mounts. They still make the riser. They still make the bipod adapter. Those parts are all still available. This lower receiver is actually a Pac West Arms A1 lower, A1 type lower. Actually, well, it was manufactured by Lewis Machine and Tool back in the pre-band days. So it's semi-automatic only, of course, but it's all A1 profile, which is again what you would see on one of these rifles. Standard stock, everything is exactly like what you would see. I left this one black. I'm not really into painting my guns, but a lot of these you will see painted in a flat dark earth color. And what we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at the Mark 12 ModH. What we see here is what's called the Mark 12 ModH or Mod Holland. Master Sergeant Holland was very instrumental in a lot of weapons programs for the Special Forces group. He had a lot of influence on the Mark 12 designs as well as many others. The difference between the Mark 12 ModO and the ModH is primarily the barrel. This barrel is a 16-inch barrel rather than the 18-inch barrel. They wanted it shorter. You'll also see that the gas block is underneath the handguard. It's the same handguard that was used on the ModO. You have a little bit different of a muzzle brake on there, but it utilizes the exact same sound suppressor as the ModO and the Mod 1 does. You still have the same bipod. The other major difference is this one has a telescopic stock. Now, I do believe that most of these were not fully automatic. They got rid of that capability. So they wanted a telescopic stock. For as far as the lower receiver is concerned, everything was the exact same. They were generally the original model A1 M16A1 lowers. Now the ones that were made, the ModOs came back to PRI, and Dave Dunlop actually modified them as per the specs of the Special Forces. They said they wanted the shorter barrel, which he gave them, and they wanted a telescopic stock, which he gave them. Now you do have the a longer sleeve on top. It's not the same as the ModO with the swan sleeve. It's much shorter. Again, it was utilized because of the longer scope that was used on it. Now, a lot of the ModOs would actually use a thermal night vision or different types of thermal or night vision optics, so you had the additional real estate. That was one of the setbacks to having the sleeve the way that it was on here, was you weren't able to put some of them in line with the optic like you were on the ModOs and the Mod 1s. It was slightly lighter, not much. It utilized the exact same sound suppressor, which we're going to throw on here. Now, at practical ranges, it didn't make that much of a difference for as far as a 16 versus an 18-inch barrel. There were some very, very long-range shots that we're taking with these, throughout their use. Again, the combination of the barrel with the ammunition, it just proved to be a very lethal combination. Now, the ModH is also available if you want to get one through PRI. They do sell the ModH upper receivers. And what you actually see here would be an actual ModH, because those components were actually PRI they were assembled on the upper receiver. This system that you see right here, this was developed by PRI. Uses the same PRI gas buster charging handle. It's got a PRI folding front sight and the rear sight, so they're both folding. It's not on the gas block, because the gas block is actually underneath the handguard. But this is the traditional ModH. This one, again, there were very few. There were much fewer of these than there were of ModOs that were ever used. This was a far more of a specialized rifle, but it was one that was produced. I want to touch a little bit more on the ammunition itself. The Mark 262 ammunition is my industry standard. That is exactly what I use. If I want to test accuracy in any 5.56 rifle, that's what I use. Fortunately, Jeff Hoffman is one of my biggest supporters. He provides me with the ammunition. And that ammunition I've used in many, many rifles. And I've had a lot of time and interviewed Jeff Hoffman as well as people at Crane on the development of that ammunition. Jeff Hoffman truly is the designer of that ammunition. The SOCOM knew they wanted to go with a 77 grain projectile. It was his job to perfect it. He had done that on several ways. There were some changes in powder that had to be done. There'd been a couple different iterations in propellant. One of them, the first major problem with the propellant was they had found in cold weather they were having rifles short stroke. So Jeff was able to get a better powder blend, so he was able to eliminate that. The accuracy, again, has been tremendous, but the terminal performance is what I really wanted to discuss. The Mark 262 ammunition, again, was developed as a match-grade cartridge, but they had found, due to its length and its ballistics, that it was extremely effective even on targets that were thin and malnourished, like you were to find in Afghanistan and Iraq. Where with the M855 ammunition, it wasn't so. The M855 would not cause as much damage because of the fact that the bullet would not yaw. It has to yaw before it will break apart. They found with the Mark 262 ammunition, it would go within a few inches and then it would start to yaw and it would break apart at the cantilever, causing multiple wound channels. In effect, that's how you destroy a target, is you destroy tissue. The Mark 262 did that, incredibly. It had both the accuracy and the terminal performance that it wanted. But it didn't stop with the Mark 12. SOCOM had found that the Mark 262 Mod 1 cartridge drastically increased terminal performance over the M855 in all weapon systems. We normally just see the Mark 262 in the SPR, but however, it started being used in the Mark 18s and in the M4A1s, and it became a very coveted round due to the fact that it had such good terminal performance and such good accuracy in all weapons platforms. And still today, it's probably the most sought-after ammunition in the U.S. military. Unfortunately, only SOCOM is authorized to buy it. Regular Army is not authorized to buy this. However, there are some nations, there's one nation in particular, that has now adopted the Mark 262 as their standard issue ammunition in their new rifles. Jeff Hoffman has customers all over the world who utilize this ammunition. Most of them have been countries who've worked with SOCOM, special operations units that have worked with our SOCOM units. They've seen the ammunition, they liked it, so they called and they bought it themselves. I think it's probably one of the most successful cartridges ever in the 5.56 lineup. There is a commercial version available from Black Hills to the commercial market. Comes in a black box. It's an actual 5.56 millimeter load, 77 grain open tip match. It's loaded the same way. The propellants may differ a little bit because, again, there's a very special blend that's used in the Mark 262, which is a combination of flash inhibitors and different types of things. Quite some time ago, Jeff gets this powder overseas, and half of the factory blew up overseas. So he had there was quite a shortage of that propellant for quite some time, so he was only putting that propellant in the government issue stuff. That may have changed. They may be back up to production. He may be using the same propellant now, but that propellant had more to do with flash and some other things, not so much accuracy. You will not find a difference in the accuracy between the military Mark 262 ModO and the commercial 5.56 Mark 262 ModO. I recommended this ammunition to police departments for use in their short-barreled rifles. That was the one incredible thing where, most of the time when you would go with a shorter barrel, you would lose a lot of your terminal performance. With this ammunition, not so much. It didn't. And in fact, this ammunition in those short 10.5 or 11.5 inch barrels was incredible. One of the departments that I had suggested this ammunition to, when they got it, they've had a couple shootings, and they were very, very surprised to see how quickly the target went down. One of them was actually even a dog, a pit bull that the owner, told to sick the SWAT guy, and he's never. And this guy said, "I've shot a lot of dogs in his career as a SWAT guy, and he never saw one drop like that." And they've had some officer-involved shootings with human targets, and gentleman was stopped with one shot. It definitely makes a major difference in terminal performance. For as far as barrier is concerned, this is not a barrier round. This is designed as an anti-personnel round, not as a barrier round. If you need barrier, you have the M995, the M855 A1, or if you have the M855, has slightly better barrier. For law enforcement, you're looking at more of the bonded type bullets for barrier, but that's also an area for debate, whether it's more important for you to have better terminal performance or barrier. That's a whole different discussion. But this ammunition, again, if you're looking for a precision match grade round, I think Black Hills is second to none. I don't think anybody out there makes a better round than they do in this caliber. And my Mark 262, that's all it sees. It's never fired anything other than the Mark 262, and it never will. That's the ammunition it was designed for, and as a weapon system, having the rifle, that particular barrel, and that suppressor, you put all those three together, I think you have probably one of the finest 5.56 DMR or sharpshooter rifles in the industry. What we're going to do now is we're going to take both the ModO and ModH out to the range, and we're going to see how they shoot, and we're going to see what kind of groups we can get. What we have here is the Mark 12 ModO.
This is set up basically the same way that it would have been for SOCOM. And ammunition we're using is the Mark 262 Mod 1 ammunition manufactured by Jeff Hoffman at Black Hills, which is, in my opinion, the most accurate out-of-box ammunition in the industry. We're first going to fire the rifle unsuppressed. What we have here is the Allen Engineering Model AEM5 sound suppressor. This was the actual sound suppressor that was used on the Mark 12 rifles. What we have here is the Mark 12 ModH, or Mod Holland. There's a very limited number of these made. They were made for 5th Special Forces in very limited numbers. The main difference was the change from the 18-inch barrel to a 16-inch barrel, and the telescopic stock, and the sleeve is not as long. We're first going to fire unsuppressed.
The Mark 12 platform, again, is probably one of the most successful platforms for the development of the AR-15 type system for military use. I'm quite surprised to see that they're not still in production. I know they're still in use. You can still see footage in Afghanistan and Iraq where these things are still in use. I think this rifle exceeded even the expectations that SOCOM had for its performance. There's been a real revival in people wanting to build these things with the movies coming out. For instance, Lone Survivor, that was used by a couple of the guys in that unit. That actually sparked quite a bit of interest in the Mark 12 Mod 1s. In fact, I spoke to Ron Allen at Allen Engineering and saying that after Lone Survivor came out, he had a massive surge in orders for these suppressors. So there are several companies right now who are making these. Another one that's really good is Troy Industries. Steve Troy is making a Mark 12 Mod 1 commemorative variation, which has most of the same components as well. Again, we have PRI. BCM has made Mark 12 ModO and Mod 1 upper receivers. So they are available, and for anybody who wants to build one, you have a lot of options. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions on this family of weapons, please feel free to leave me a comment. Please click like, and even better, please subscribe.